Hi, welcome to 4-H Camp Bristol Hills, On the Front Green series of online learning lessons. My name is Jim Hooper. I'm a camp manager with 4-H Camp Bristol Hills. Last year we debuted a brand new program called Camp Windwalker, a tent-based camping program for small groups of teens going into 8th grade or higher. Teens in this program learn many different skills that are useful for life on the trail, away from the comforts of home. Today, we're kicking off a new online series focusing on many of those same skills for those of you at home. Throughout the series, we'll be bringing you a variety of lessons that are designed for the novice outdoors person to help keep you safe and comfortable on the trail. Like all outdoor activities, backpacking has inherent risks, and anyone choosing to leave home and spend a few days and nights outdoors should exercise caution. Each activity has its own potential hazards, which need to be evaluated based on your individual circumstances. Now that the legalese is done, lace up your boots. Let's hit the trail. Now there are all sorts of different types of camping. There's RV camping, there's cabin rental camping, there's throwing up a tent in a state park kind of camping, and then there's backpacking. For the purposes of this series, we're going to be focusing on backpacking, the kind of programming that we do at our Camp Windwalker. Amazing trips like this actually begin long before you ever step foot on the trail. When you're out backpacking, you're going to need to bring everything with you that you're going to need, which means you're going to have to do a lot of planning to make sure that you haven't forgotten anything. Sitting down for lunch in the pouring rain is not the time to realize that you never quite got the hang of how to light that new camp stove you bought on sale a month ago. Planning for an extended hike requires you to think about every aspect of your daily life over the duration of the hike. Who am I going to be hiking with? What am I going to eat? What am I going to wear? What color are the trail markers? Are there even any trail markers out there? What am I going to do if I get hurt along the way? This is what the planning phase is all about. It's important to start your planning by thinking about the reasons that you want to get out on the trail. I like to get out a piece of paper and a pencil and literally write down my goals as I begin to plan a trip. Later, as you go through your planning, ask yourself if your plans are in line with your goal. If you say that your goal is to do some soul searching in the peace and quiet of nature, but you're planning a trip with 4 or 5 of your buddies, you may need to schedule time throughout the day to get that peace and quiet. Maybe you do a staggered start so that each person heads out 15 minutes ahead of the next person, so that each hiker can have some of that quiet time. Some common things to consider when setting your goals might include: how long do you want to be out on the trail? How far do you want to hike? Will you hike with a friend, a small group, go out solo? Is peak bagging your thing, or is it important to go fishing along your trip? Do you want to plan a route through town so that you can restock supplies? Do you want a round trip hike or an in and out hike? Can you park 2 cars, one on each end? These are all important things to think about in your goal setting stage. Now that you've got a pretty good idea of why you want to hit the trail, it's time to start thinking about where you want to go. Around here, if you're looking to spend 3 or 4 nights on the trail, you're generally looking at 3 places. The Finger Lakes Trail is right here in our backyard, and it does offer some nice hikes. A little further, check out the Adirondacks in upstate New York, or Allegheny National Forest in Pennsylvania. Is there a place that you're already a little familiar with? If you're hiking with a friend, is there somewhere that they had in mind? If you don't already have anything in mind, check out some of the maps and guidebooks in the local retailers. Here in the Finger Lakes, we're fortunate to have a lot of outdoor outfitters that can help you with planning for your trip. Places like REI, the North Face, Sierra Trading Post, LL Bean, the Outdoor Store in Bloomfield, even Barnes & Noble's has a pretty good selection of maps and trail guides. Many outfitters also have knowledgeable staff who are ready to help you to plan for your trip. Once you have a general idea of where you think you might like to go, it's time to start looking for specific trails and trail combinations that will help you to reach your goals. This is where I like to hike every inch of the trail before I ever leave the house. Dig deep into the local trail guides, read multiple trail guides, check out the topographical maps, reach out to local hiking clubs in the area, and see what you can learn about your prospective trail. Many of these trails actually have extensive websites where you can check out photos, videos, and narrated guides as people like to tell their stories. Try to learn as much information as you possibly can about your prospective trail. As you're doing your research, try to answer some questions, because the answers will dictate oftentimes what you need to bring with you. Is there fresh water along the way? Are there pre-existing campsites along the trail? Do you need to cross a river or a creek? Is there a bridge, or will you be wading through the water? I once planned a trip that had a lot of small footbridges along the way, only to find out days before we left that a windstorm and localized flooding had destroyed almost every bridge along the route. We ended up changing our hike from the Adirondacks to the Finger Lakes Trail as a result. You'll want to ask yourself, are there good fishing spots along the way? Are there trail junctions that you should be watching for? Are there road crossings that could be beneficial if you run into trouble and need a bailout? Is there cell phone service, just in case? If you're not doing the hike solo, and I don't recommend starting with solo hikes, you're going to want to start to get your crew together sooner than later. Let them be a part of the planning process. They're going to need to check their schedules to see that they can get time away from work, family, and other obligations. If you're hiking with a crew, you're going to need to consider each person, their physical abilities, what they bring to the party. Can they handle the distance that you're talking about? If you're going to be canoeing, are they good paddlers? Is there someone in your group who likes to pack on as many miles as possible, and someone else that likes to sleep in and enjoy the scenic vistas along the way? Having everything you need, but keeping your backpack to a manageable weight is the yin and the yang of the backpacker's world. You certainly don't want to leave anything behind that you're going to need, but you also don't want to be carrying 300 pounds of extra gear. Before each trip, make a list of all the equipment that you're going to need. How many or how much of each? Do you need to carry it all, or are there people in your group that you can share that with? Does everybody need their own water filter, or can we carry one or two for the whole group? Inspect all of your equipment early and repair and replace as necessary before the trip. If you're buying new gear, make sure that you know how to use it before you hit the trail. If you're buying new boots, be sure to break them in for at least a month before you hit the trail. Otherwise, blisters are going to be a real problem. We'll do a full breakdown of equipment to carry in a later video, but your needs are going to vary depending on the location and the duration of your hike, the time of year, the number of people in your group, and your general level of experience in camping. Make sure you bring a first aid kit and know how to use it. How extensive a kit will depend on the number of people in your party and how long you're going to be out for. Remember, you're not calling an ambulance, so you need to be able to repair yourself or anyone in your party well enough to be able to get yourself out to the nearest roadway for help. We may do a session on wilderness first aid later in the series, but before you head out on the trail, get yourself a certification in wilderness first aid. Train to Save in Canandaigua is our training partner for 4-H Camp Bristol Hills. And when you get back from your trip, while your body still remembers exactly what it felt like to carry everything you brought, be ruthless when you unpack. Did you really need that D-cell mag light, or would a smaller headlamp have been just as good? Did you ever use that big heavy camera, or would your cell phone have worked? Did you ever open that 5th box of granola bars? Keep notes and leave your notes in your backpack where you'll find it the next time you're planning a trip. I've heard it said that a good trail meal cures all ills. And while a tortilla with some cheese sticks and pepperoni may not cure a sprained ankle, it sure does help to lift the spirits after hiking through the mud and the bugs. Having good nutrition and plenty of it is one of the most important, if underrated, parts of your trip. You'll need to know how many people you have in your group and plan for large portions. Does anyone have any special food needs? Setting up your campfire is not the time you want to discover that someone in your group is vegetarian or dairy-free. Remember that you won't have a refrigerator, so plan for foods that are non-perishable. One trick I've used occasionally over the years is to bring a few cold foods for the first night and pack them deep inside the pack. You'll feel like royalty on the trail when you unveil a small pack of ground venison for the night's shepherd's pie. You'll also want to plan a good number of meals that can be prepared without a campfire or stove, just in case you can't get one started. I like to bring food that is lightweight, flexible in your pack, and things that don't generate a lot of garbage. It's also a good idea to bring foods that can be repackaged to save space in your bag. We'll do another workshop on outdoor cooking later in the series, but some of my favorite meals on the trails are things like Cliff Bars, oatmeal packets, tortillas with cheese and pepperoni, and some of the freeze-dried dinners you can find at many of the outdoor outfitters. This is a good time to remind you to bring a couple of gallon-sized Ziploc bags to store your garbage, including food wrappers, apple cores, and so on. You don't want to leave anything behind. Once your bags are packed, it's time to hit the road. Plan ahead so that you know how early you need to be at the trailhead. How many miles do you need to walk on day one, and how long will it take you to get there? You'll want to meet your group early enough at the trailhead so that you can make your campsite well before dark. The last thing you want to be doing is setting up your campsite after dark. If you've got a long drive in front of you, it might be worth getting a hotel or staying at a campground near the trailhead so that you can get an early start on the next morning. And I always recommend leaving a detailed itinerary with somebody at home. You want somebody to know exactly where you're going to be each day, just in case. You want someone who's going to recognize when you're not home when you were supposed to be, so that they can contact the authorities in the case of emergency. Once you're out on the trail, the concerns of daily life and your normal routines seem to melt away. Resist the temptation to check your phone constantly and use the time to reconnect with friends, read a good book, or do a little journaling. You've done a lot of hard work to plan this amazing trip. It's time you put some miles on those boots and enjoy the world around you. Thanks for watching this video, and be sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you can watch each of the videos we post in the backpacking miniseries. See you next time as we meet out on the front green for more tales from the trails.